Hello, this is Dr. Eric Bricker, and thank you for watching AHealthcareZ. Today's topic is corporate executives' role in health insurance change. So, believe it or not, the denial of a C-suite claim is actually one of the major impetuses for a company to change its health insurance carriers. So I've worked with hundreds of insurance brokers and benefits consultants over the years, and they have many times told me stories of the president, the business owner, the CEO, the CFO, the head of sales, even the head of HR themselves, who had some sort of issue with a health insurance claim where it was denied. And what do you know? Next year, during open enrollment, they weren't with the same insurance carrier anymore. Like, they hadn't gotten necessarily a high renewal, they hadn't had any problems with their employees, but because of C-suite executives, personally, either they or their spouse or their kids had a problem with a denied claim from the health insurance carrier, then guess what? They changed insurance carriers. So if we want to talk about change in healthcare and health insurance, then we have to talk about the impact of the corporate executives and their own personal healthcare experiences. Okay, now, insurance carriers are very smart. They have a way of mitigating the risk of a C-suite executive at one of their customers having a denied claim and then having that bad experience causing them to be fired. And that risk mitigation strategy of the insurance company is called the Rapid Resolutions Team. That's right. Most health insurance carriers that I've experienced have what is referred to as a Rapid Resolutions Team that is like a separate, hidden customer service super force of health insurance green berets and SEALs that will especially fix whatever claims problem there is so that the executives don't have to deal with it. They typically just pay it. Okay, so this is how it works at most companies if an executive has a health insurance claim issue, or their spouse or their kids do. They go to HR. They don't call customer service at the carrier. They just go straight to HR and say, HR, fix this. HR goes to the broker consultant, says fix this. Broker consultant goes to the carrier account exec, says fix this. The carrier exec goes to the Rapid Resolutions Team within the carrier. You can't call the Rapid Resolutions Team. The only way you can get to the carrier Rapid Resolutions Team is through the carrier account exec. Then the claim issue is fixed, it's paid, blah, blah, blah. Then the message goes back to the account exec, back to the broker consultant, back to HR, and then back to the exec that it's all taken care of. Okay, let's contrast that with what all the rest of the employees and their family members have to deal with. The employees, they call carrier customer service. It's a completely separate process. Oftentimes, sometimes the employee can go to HR depending upon the size of the company, depending upon, if it's like their top salesperson, they might complain to their boss, the VP of sales, and the VP of sales might say to the head of HR, hey, HR, you better fix this salesperson's health insurance claim problem because they're our #1 person. They literally sell tens of millions of dollars of our product every year. So fix this, make it go away fast, please. Okay, so sometimes people outside of the executive team can actually go through this route as well by getting to HR, but most employees, they just have to go to carrier customer service, where it typically doesn't get fixed. Okay, so now let's look in more detail at who these executives are. So what is the C-suite, right? Their jobs typically start with the letter C. So it's the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer, the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer, the COO, the Chief Operating Officer, the CTO, the Chief Technology Officer, or the CIO, the Chief Information Officer. And then oftentimes there's like another CXO. It could be a CHRO for being the head of HR. It could be the Chief Revenue Officer. It could be, so there's and obviously depending upon the size of the company, the executive team could be much larger than this. Or if it's a smaller company, it might just be like a CEO, a CFO, and a COO, right? So there are approximately 200,000 CEOs in America. And say, okay, well, if a CEO has to have an executive team, well, then they got to have another 200,000 CFOs, another 200,000 COOs, another 200,000 CTOs, and another 200,000 CXOs. Now, again, some companies are going to have much bigger exec teams, some companies are going to have smaller exec teams, but let's just say you had these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 positions, and there's about 200,000 of each. That means that there's about 1 million C-suite executives in America. Now, there are approximately 78 million workers that have employer-sponsored insurance through their job. So if you take the 1 million divided by the 78 million, that means that 1.3% of all workers have this sort of special treatment when it comes to fixing their health insurance problems. Or another way of saying it is that 98.7% do not have it. Okay, now, not all executives use their health insurance all the time. You might have an executive that's like a triathlete, or they're just healthy, or what have you. The average age of an executive in America, by the way, is 51, so understandably so. They tend to be a little bit on the older side, with the average working age of an employee in America is only about 44. Okay, so again, we got the 80-20 rule, right, where 20% of claimants, in other words, 20% of these 78 million, drive 80% of the claims, and so understandably that means that probably typically about 20% of these 1 million executives actually have some sort of substantial healthcare issue. And typically it's going to fall into the areas of cancer, cardiovascular, like a heart attack, or musculoskeletal, like they need a joint replacement, right? So that means that if 20% of a million are actually having some sort of like significant healthcare issue where they have to use their health insurance, that means that about 200,000 people a year in the C-suite potentially have to go through this sort of special rapid resolutions process. And this rapid resolutions process has a lot of money at stake. Because remember I said at the beginning that if one of the C-suite people has an issue with the health insurance plan, then there is a fairly high likelihood that the company is going to change their health insurance company the following year. Okay, so I said in a previous video that employer-sponsored insurance accounts for $1.2 trillion a year of U.S. healthcare spending. So, if you take the 200,000 C-suite executives that actually have to substantially use their health insurance on an annual basis, and you take the 1.2 trillion of healthcare spend across all employers in America, and you divide the 1.2 trillion by the 200,000 executives, that means that there is approximately $6 billion of healthcare at stake, healthcare spending at stake, for each of these quote-unquote sick executives. So if you're a health insurance company, you essentially, now of course, that's $6 billion on average, right? So, but the point is that you better believe that the health insurance carriers have a very well-run process for addressing sick executives if they themselves hold the keys to approximately $6 billion of healthcare spending each. All right, now, and that's only on the health insurance side. In terms of access to care, a lot of times the health insurance company can't help out with that. So they need to find like a special urologist that specializes in prostate cancer, or a special medical oncologist that specializes in breast cancer if they or their spouse happen to have some sort of, really, unfortunate, serious medical problem. But here, a lot of these people in the C-suite of corporations in America, they tend to be well-connected people, so they tend to have better access to doctors and hospitals as well than your typical Joe and Jane employee. Now, what's my point here? My point is that for employer-sponsored health plans, the health care and health insurance experience of the executives is very different than the healthcare and health insurance experience of the rest of the employees. So it goes by the old saying, rules for thee, but not for me, right? So if we want to have change within healthcare, within employer-sponsored plans, just know that the experience of the employees that is quote unquote so bad is very different than the experience of the executives. And so really one of the major impetuses for change within an employer-sponsored health plan is frankly paying felt by these 200,000 executives. And I've seen this. I've seen major, like, high-tech manufacturer, it was a biomedical manufacturer in America with, over 10,000 employees, and they had a high-level executive who had cancer, and it was a horrible experience for them, both clinically and in terms of their insurance experience, and it totally upended the priorities of the entire company's health insurance plan. Like, I would argue upended for the better, right? They made huge changes in their employee health plan because of this one executive's cancer diagnosis. So, just know that when it comes to forces of change in healthcare in America, that these specific executives of corporations are hugely important. And that's my point for today. Thank you for watching AHealthcareZ.